Transfers galore for Syracuse in what has become free agency in college off seasons. They lost Duce Chestnut. They bring in a 4-star DB from Nebraska, and a whole lot more has happened. Plus, there's a Cornell game this weekend on the basketball court. We'll talk about that, give you our predictions for that too. It's all on Locked On Syracuse. Starts right now.
Are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to your Friday episode. Matt Bonaparte, Owen Valentine with you on this wonderful, wonderful Friday morning, wherever you are. It's probably snowing where you are. I know it's going to be snowing tomorrow morning for us, which is Friday morning because we record these the night before. I don't know. Is this going to be snowing up there, Owen?
Yeah, it's going to snow forever and all of eternity up here. The kiddos are praying for a snow day. We'll see if they get one, but it is supposed to snow.
I'll tell you what, when I was up for the Georgetown game up in Syracuse, it did snow, and I was elated because I love the first few snows, or I always did when I was a student, so I was happy I got to catch another one. But before we get any further, this episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. We thank you for making us your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. And like I said, there's a lot to talk about today. Transfers. It all started with, I don't even know what. Jeremiah Wilson entered the transfer portal. Then he withdrew his name, and now he's coming back to Syracuse because maybe he didn't realize that one Duce Chestnut, Owen, like you said when we were talking pre-pod, he's leaving. Duce Chestnut in the transfer portal. Maybe Jeremiah Wilson didn't realize he was going.
Yeah, this is one where I feel like first and foremost, when you think of Duce and you think of that transferring, it felt inevitable for me. And I wish it didn't, but it just seemed like when Tony White made his decision that naturally I felt like Duce was going to follow suit, getting out of here and going to a different spot. It's unfortunate. I didn't want to be right, but it just sort of felt, you get the gut feeling where it seems like, he is going to follow suit just because of the talent level. And I think, without White, you expect there to be some sort of drop off in theory. Although I saw a report that maybe they're going to go for Rocky Long himself to fill the DC role.
I saw that too.
But that one felt inevitable. And it almost seemed, as you were saying, like we were chatting about it before we started recording, it almost seemed like Jeremiah didn't consult with Duce Chestnut before making the decision. And it was unsure, not sure. And then all of a sudden, Wilson's like, oh my, right? I'm no longer the third cornerback on the team. Duce is gone. I don't know, no mathematician here, but that means I'm number 2. That means I'm a starting cornerback. And so that was the quickest dip into the transfer portal that you're really going to see in terms of.
It was John Bull-esque.
Yeah. All right. Let me see. Ooh, dip your toe in the water. It was a little too cold for me. Let's go home. That's sort of what it felt like. I'm excited to have him back. I don't know if he is going to live up to the mental hype that I built for him after watching, him pull down a one-handed interception in preseason and in camp, and making a couple big plays in preseason camp that we heard about and we were getting a little look at from him. I don't know if he'll live up to that hype, but I think he has the talent to, be of great value to this team. And I'm glad we will get to see that come to fruition with a guy that I think is good and can contribute and can be, a name that's going to compete at the corner spot and do some things, good for this squad, regardless of who's at the helm in the defensive coordinator spot.
Here's my question real quick before we move on.
Yeah.
A lot of people yesterday, or maybe it was 2 days ago now, were talking about Duce and after he transferred and whatnot. A lot of people, I don't know if it was just the immediate when one of your favorite players leaves the team, like some people turn on him thing. But
Mhm.
a lot of people were out there saying he was overrated anyway, and you really aren't going to miss him, and it wasn't as a big of a deal as some people thought. How do you feel about that?
I I think there's some merit to it.
I do
I don't
too.
think I don't
He
think
got
we're
burned a
not.
couple
Here's
times.
my thing with that is he a little overhyped? Do we give him too much props? Probably. Are you gonna miss him? Yes.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's the
I think
thing.
you can those two things are not they're not going to have to be both correct. I'm
Mutually
blanking on the word.
exclusive.
Thank you. They're not mutually exclusive here, right? You can have and say with with merit and being correct that we do overhype Duce and we look at him a lot better than maybe he's performed and he wasn't incredible this year. But to say that you're not going to miss him is too far of an extreme. And I think when you look at what he can do and what he has done, he's deserved enough respect to not be thrown like that and dragged like that a little bit. He is a guy that you're going to miss defensively, and one of the bigger names Syracuse has pulled in recruiting in the last handful of years.
Well,
In all
that's
honesty,
why. That's
yeah,
why he was so hyped up is because he was a
true.
four-star true freshman who played as the second corner on day one, had the pick in the first game he ever played against Ohio at Peden Stadium. It was the whole hype kind of grew from there kind of thing. Do I think there's some merit to it? Like you said, absolutely. He did get burned a couple times, but he was a sophomore, and I think a third year of Deuce would have been really impressive. And I think he was on the trajectory towards the NFL. I don't know if he would have been at the space that Garrett is right now, but I think he was getting there. And I still think he was an incredibly talented player who I'm sad to see go. So is he maybe a little overhyped? Sure, but I don't really see why a lot of people out there are saying, "Oh, not a big deal, whatever, deuces, whatever." Like, he was a really good player, so I mean that's all I wanted to say. Um, but the man who has come from Nebraska and what has kind of turned out to maybe be a trade of sorts if Deuce does end up as a Cornhusker is Jaden Gould, who was a four-star recruited corner. Here's the tweet that he confirmed his commitment to the Orange. He was recruited as a four-star corner, top 25 corner in the country, and I think now as 6'2" is more of a safety. But I think he'll fit into Syracuse's secondary pretty well, especially if they keep that 3-3-5 and playing with guys like Jason Simmons Jr. and Jihad Carter is certainly going to help him. Obviously, we haven't seen this guy, and all we can really go off of is his ranking and the pedigree a little bit, but I'm hyped about it.
Yeah, I think it's what you want to see, right? And obviously, you wish there was some more tape, meaning that he played a little more, and there's some more fresh takes that you can build from that. But when all is said and done, right, this is a solid transfer, a 4-star, right? We talk about it all the time how Syracuse doesn't get 4-star recruits, and when they do, they're few and far between, right? They're sparse when they get them. And yes, this is a guy that didn't play this year and did
Redshirted.
redshirt, but he's
It's fine.
also a guy that is a 4-star and has the talent and the build and things like that that you're looking for, and can fill roles in a defense that is going to have some names leave, but also does still bring back a little bit of experience. And I think that's a good thing for Syracuse to be able to bring him in and fill whatever role it ends up being. You said, and we starting to see, in the safety spot when he was originally, seen as a cornerback out of high school. I do think that he's going to be of relevance. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the defense, right? Are they staying in a 3-3-5? Are you going to have that rover spot where you're going to have a third sort of safety in there, or are they going to switch back where that's not going to be as important of a thing? So that, I mean, there's a lot of questions regarding where he's going to be on the field and how much he'll be able to play. And also, I mean, as we just said, we haven't seen much of him, right? We don't exactly know where he stands right now. We know what people thought of him a year ago, a little more than a year ago. But right now, there are definitely some question marks, but I think definitely good question marks to have.
Yes. And the future could be bright with some of the transfers Syracuse is bringing in. We already talked about the Richmond offensive lineman and the defensive tackle from Alabama, Braylon Ingram. I believe that was his name. I'm
Yeah.
just going to make sure.
Yep.
But yeah, Ingram. But yeah, I mean, the transfers, I think everybody has realized at this point that it's free agency. And Syracuse just has to retool. So, was I part of the crowd who was a little bit shocked at first to see guys go so quickly? Sure, but it is just something you have to adapt to. And we're in a new age of college football and college basketball where guys are going to leave if they want to because they can play right away, as we
Yeah.
all know.
100%. And I mean, I think right now you lose Duce, yes. Linton, I think we thought could be a big player next year.
I like Linton a lot, but I
I
could
like
see why
him.
he would leave. He didn't get enough playing time.
Yeah.
And like we knew from
Syracuse
that clip,
hasn't been killed in terms of transfers right now. You lose some receivers that,
I'm worried about
maybe you don't
Okechukwu.
like. Yeah. I just like right now, knock on wood, they're okay in terms of who they've brought in versus who they've lost.
Still haven't lost anybody in the linebacking core, so
That's important.
that's
Yeah.
good. I really like if we saw somebody like Marlowe go, that would really, really hurt. Or even some of that depth, I wouldn't be so surprised to see a guy like Anwar Sparrow go, just because he showed us how talented he really is, and maybe we'll see more of him next year. We definitely will, but still, you're gonna have Stephon Thompson coming back, so I don't know what that situation's gonna be like. Um, but anyway, there's just a lot to think about there. All right, let's take a quick break, and then we'll continue this talk. But first, let's talk BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball and the World Cup. It's all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, they've got those too. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okie doke. Back here on Lockdown Syracuse, I'm Matt Bonaparte. He is Owen Valentine. We're talking football transfers and generally just talking about what the defense will be like next year. We talked about this in an episode in the past. I can't remember how long ago or which episode it was, but I think it's something important to revisit now with the transfers taking place. Who are going to be the biggest names on this defensive front? And probably we could talk offense too, but I want to start with defense next year, because Duce was definitely one of those names that was immediately brought up, and Steve Linton might have been one of them as well. But now it's Jihad Carter, probably. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the number one name that I think of. Marlowe Wax
Mhm.
is probably number two, and then Stephon Thompson, who's returning from injury, is probably third. Did I forget anybody? I mean, Isaiah Johnson and Jeremiah Wilson are really, really young corner tandem that is going to be thrown out there every game. And honestly, that's probably the thing I'm most worried about.
Yeah, there's a lot of, despite the fact that there are names coming back, there's a lot up in the air in this defense and what their sort of identity will be next year and a lot of things. And I think some of that gets answered when you figure out, who's coming in at DC. But a lot of that is going to be who steps up from guys that were sharing snaps and reserve players and a little bit of that depth that you saw, right? And so many times with this injury riddled defense, who is the next man up? Who of those people are going to step up full time? I think you nailed it with the three that you mentioned in terms of most important and biggest names coming back. I think Jihad established himself as the guy right now. The big plays that he was able to make this season and continue to make and just stepped up, it seemed like, and turnover after turnover after turnover, he was able to cause and capitalize on. I think he deserves to be given that credit. And I think the same goes with Marlowe, obviously, and some guys coming back from injury, right? How do you return from an injury? Do you come back better? Do you come back the same? Do you come back worse? I looked at Jihad, I looked to Marlowe to sort of see what happens in terms of leadership out of those two guys on this defense.
Yeah, and you brought up leadership, and that's the thing that Syracuse is ultimately going to lose with some of these guys going, and Garrett and Michael Jones. Even though I don't think Michael, as of recording this, has not made an official statement about leaving, but I mean, come on, the guy's going to be out the door. So I mean, you lose Duce, you lose Michael, you lose uh, Garrett. Elijah Clark might be a guy who steps up and makes a big difference in that secondary. I liked what I saw from him this year. He didn't make a huge impact, but I thought he was good. One of those guys where there were some games where he was in on every single play, some games where he got burned, certainly, especially early on. But I thought he was a solid transfer from Rutgers. Isaiah Johnson, though, and our Jeremiah Wilson are the two guys I keep coming back to that are just going to have so much on their shoulders. And what's interesting, while you were talking about how the defense going to have so many question marks, I was thinking, I feel like that's the case, at least has been for the last couple or maybe 3 years, where there have always been a couple of question marks and they've been filled and here, there, wherever. But at the end of the day, the one thing you could always rely on is with whatever they had, Tony White was going to make it good. And the defense was really never the problem, especially this year. I mean, it was really never the problem. The defense was always going out there and keeping them in games. Think about the Purdue game, the Clemson game, the Virginia game. I mean, without the defense, they get blown out, obviously. But still, that's now the big question. And the offensive side, you have guys for most positions, especially this upcoming season, where you're going to have a quarterback and a wide receiver tandem that you pretty much know 100% going in Schrader and Gadsden. We haven't heard anything from Sean Tucker yet, but I lean towards him leaving. So even then, you're going to have LaQuint Allen. You know that for a fact. But you're now at a point where this could be a program shifting season if the defensive coordinator they bring in doesn't advance it or doesn't at least keep Syracuse in length to where they have been every single season on the defensive end.
Yeah, and I do think that there is and needs to be so much emphasis on this hire because of where things stand with the program, because of the fact that both coordinators are gone. You promoted from within in terms of the OC spot with Beck, but you're also looking right now at a situation in terms of Babers, right? Babers, I am very harsh on because I don't think he is a good football coach. I don't think anyone's surprised to hear me say that again. But the one thing that we said this whole year is he brought in two damn good coordinators to pick up some of his slack. And this coordinator hire, in terms of the DC spot, is I think make or break for what happens next for Dino Babers. He's got a year or 2 years left on the contract, we think. I would be shocked if that was wrong based on years, based on salary, based on buyout numbers. I assume there's 2 years left. He's got a lot in terms of importance riding on the effectiveness of this hire. If you pull in a DC that does not bring this team to the defensive levels that it needs to succeed or relative success when it comes to, Syracuse football as a whole, the next move for Dino Babers is going to be interesting. If you bring in a DC that does good things and elevates this team and sort of has the impact that White was able to have when he came in, I think the next contract is a pretty one, whether wherever it ends up being, Syracuse or not. This really is these two hires, and I think I'm okay with what Beck can do. But right now, I think this defensive coordinator hire is paramount to Dino Babers' future as a head coach in college football.
Absolutely agree. I think it's going to be really directly impactful on the success of the team in the next couple of seasons. Okay, let's take one more quick break before we talk Cornell basketball. This one brought to you by the NHTSA. You're hanging out with some friends and you're putting back a few brews. You got to go home. You're going to drive, but you think about calling for a ride. You're like, nah, you live nearby. You could make it home. It's okay. No big deal. What are the odds he'll get pulled over anyway? And if so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you lose your job, you total your car, you kill someone. Everyone knows the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So, if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. I might have to get a career in voice acting. I'm the man. I'm feeling myself on these reads, man. All right. I'm in my bag on these reads. All right. Owen's dying laughing at me. All right. Let's talk. I got to plug in my laptop. It's going to die here. But let's talk Cornell basketball. They're coming to the
Yeah.
Dome. They come to the Dome like every year or every other year or something. They came last year because Jimmy played them. I mean, this is a team that's giving me crazy Colgate vibes, like wild Colgate vibes, and the fact that they're like a tight knit group who almost beats good teams, but like that's the kind of team that kills Syracuse. So I won't lie, I'm worried about this game. I am, especially after that performance against Monmouth that was not convincing until the very end. I'm worried. Brian Earl, he coaches a darn good team over there. They've come within 2 points of beating two ACC teams this year. Came on opening night against BC. They lost 79-77. And then their last time out, December 7th, against Miami, down in Coral Gables, they lost 107-105. They put up 105 points in regulation. So this is a team that can score. And one that Syracuse sees very often. They know how to play them, but at the same time, that means Cornell knows how to play Syracuse, especially a young Syracuse that has a lot to learn. How do you feel about this game, Owen?
I think, it can be one of those trap games as you described. I don't know if I'm as worried as you are. I do think that obviously coming off of that Monmouth game, you're a little concerned based on the start, and that's sort of a strung together series of slow starts for Syracuse. But I think this is a game where they should be all right. And you mentioned it though, Cornell has, for whatever reason, done a darn good job playing against ACC opponents this season. They are, I guess, as you said, the 2 point loss ACC Kings right now. As you look at, their only two losses of the year to a BC team that is ranked adjacent with them in terms of Ken Palm, so a very close team in terms of that. And then playing, as you mentioned, Miami really, really close. I do think this is a game that mentally I'm all right with, and I think Syracuse will be fine. But it it fits the narrative of that sort of trap game loss as you're Syracuse and things are looking up, and you're in that sort of all right, here we go. We've got some positive momentum, 4 game win streak, 4 more winnable games strung together before we hit Virginia. This is the game you drop, right? It's that narrative that Syracuse has that loss. When things are looking up, they drop a game that they're supposed to win. I think towards, I don't know, maybe 2021, in the sort of COVID season or the post-COVID season where they start out and you're like, all right, this is a 6-1 basketball team, and then they drop a game at home to Pitt, and it was like, all right, never mind, never mind. That's not what we thought this team could be. They ended up being a tournament team, but who knows? This is just a game where you want to see something out of Syracuse. You want to see them step up and play a solid game because of the non-con struggles against teams like this. I will say in defending Syracuse's ability to win here, when I look at non-con teams that I think worry me for Syracuse, they're teams that are a little more experienced than Cornell is. And as we look right now, Ken Palm has this very intricate stat of D1 experience, and Cornell's D1 experience is less than 1 year on average. So that is like 30th worst in college basketball. It's 332nd in the nation in terms of experience. So it's a very inexperienced D1 level Cornell squad, which I think really does play to Syracuse's advantage here.
You want to hear some facts
I
about
love facts.
this matchup?
Please.
First, I'm going to quiz you.
Uh-oh.
When was the last time Cornell beat Syracuse?
Oh, I should know this. I should.
You just got to give me the year.
It's not recent, is it? No. How recent is it?
I also want to test you on the streak, so I'm not going to give you that.
Oh, okay. So the fact that there's a streak means that it's been a while.
Streak could be 2.
That's true. Oh man, I don't know the answer, and I feel like I really should because this is a loss that I feel
If you want to answer the streak first, go for it, and then that'll help you with the other one.
Bones, I hate when you do this to me. You know I'm not a good trivia human being.
That's not true. You got a good brain in that cranium.
Thank you, good sir. I don't know. Can I say I don't know to both? Winning streak is.
No, you have to guess. That's the point.
I'm even worse at guessing because I'm going to look worse.
Just guess. Just throw a number out there.
Just guess.
How many times in a row has Syracuse beaten Cornell?
26.
41 times in a row.
All right. Look, here's my thing. I'm gonna exhale here because I was on the panic that it was like 2 years ago, and
No, that was not a bad guess. That was not a bad guess at all.
Okay, I mean,
I thought for sure like they'd lose one. You know, they'd lose one in like a.
That was my fear. Is I was like panicky, like, oh, maybe they dropped one a couple of years ago, and I can't remember. But no, all right. So I'm glad I didn't embarrass myself entirely in terms of botching a recent trivia question. I will excuse myself for the fact that they haven't lost in, I assume, 41 games is probably over half a century in terms of number of or how often they're going to play.
Do you want to give a guess on the last time they lost?
Okay. I said half a century there, so that's going to put us in the 70s. I'm going to say 1969.
Wow, you're close. Oh,
67?
You know what? 1968 was the last time Syracuse lost to Cornell. It was a 93-81 victory for the Big Red. Jim Boeheim was not, he had graduated from Syracuse and had not yet become the coach. He was probably an assistant, if I had to guess.
Isn't that nuts in terms of perspective? That like
it's absolutely nuts.
Jim was right there.
Yeah, well, now I'm really curious to see when he became an assistant. All right, anyway, that actually makes me so much more nervous for this game because it's like one of those where it's like it's been 400 years since they've lost, and you know that just like makes them lose. Cornell's due in this game, and it worries me.
They're not due.
They're due. They've lost 41 straight. That means they're due. If a guy went 0 for 41, what would you say? What would you say he's due? That's what my grandfather would say.
I would say he shouldn't play.
Same grandpappy I gave that Omaha Steaks to. It's free advertising.
I would say he shouldn't play.
All right, we're operating
bye-bye
off
Joey
of,
Gallo.
We're operating off of Syracuse minus 14.5 spread I found, okay? What do you take in this game?
Taking the orange.
You're taking the orange?
Taking the orange. I really do think that they're on the right track, and a Cornell squad is not going to do it to them. I don't think they are. They are first place in the Ivy League, which is that worrisome? I don't know. I will say this. I'm looking at their stats right now. They got a guy in Greg Dolan. Averages 14 points a game. He shoots 59% from three. Now, I do not have the number of attempts, but my Lanta, is that worrisome?
He shoots a lot of threes. He shoots 4 threes a game. He has shot 34 threes on the season. He's made 20 of them.
That's astounding.
That's a lot of threes made.
That's astounding. That's like Shaq's free throw percentage on a good year.
That's good. Just to make a quick callback to the Jim thing, he was hired as a grad assistant by Roy Danforth in 1969. So Jim was in the purgatory year where he had graduated in 1966 and not yet gone on to join the coaching staff. So Jim had nothing to do with that team. Now, as for my prediction, I'm going to say it's within 15 points, within 14 points, I guess. They can still win by 10 here, but I just don't see them covering like a 15-point spread. That's just crazy to me. Not crazy, but this is the kind of game that if they're ever going to let me down in this streak of really easy games, like they have done what they're supposed to do for too long, to where it's like I'm getting a little bit skeptical. Now, I might look like an idiot, and I kind of hope I do, and I hope I'm really wrong. But this is the kind of game that worries me. But that's all I got. You got anything else?
Nope.
All right. Well, thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen once again. For your next, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, big game recaps, take of the day. It's on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. Quick shout out to the YouTube watchers. We are really getting close to 1,000 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed, please go right on down there. It's free, helps us out a ton. We are 17 away as of recording. We're at 983. So help us out. It'll be fun. Owen's going to give away tickets for people, 5 if there's a case, as you know. And we'll see you later.